buddy. You're right in the middle of the path. I almost ran into you.
When I arrived at the Galapagos, the first thing that struck me was the wildlife. Not because it was so exotic, but because of how little it seemed to care about humans. Wildlife isn't tucked away. It's part of everyday life.
So we're starting out Galapagos with a walking tour from the bus station. It's been the plane, the bus, a ferry, and then another bus. And now I have a 20-minute walk back to my hostel because I was too cheap to get a taxi.
Okay. Hi.
Okay, so I landed in the Galapagos. I took a very, very much needed nap. I only slept a few hours before, so I feel refreshed now. I woke up with 2 salamanders going at it on the ceiling right above my head, so welcome to Galapagos. So I'm just trying to find a bite to eat now. I'm headed over to the waterfront, and hopefully I can find a good place to have some, then maybe do a little exploring of the island.
The wildlife native to the Galapagos evolved during a long period of geographic isolation, which produced some surprising behavior. For the most part, they seem completely unbothered by people. You could see the locals everywhere. In your hotel.
Again?
At the dock. And quite often, standing exactly where you thought that you were going to walk next.
Hi, buddy. I almost ran into you. Mr. Iguana here, just chilling on the road. Okay, on my way to breakfast. My tour is going to start today, which is quite exciting.
The Galapagos isn't one destination so much as a collection of very different islands. I was traveling with a group, moving between them by boat, sometimes spending hours crossing the open water before stepping into a completely different landscape. On Isabela Island, our group traveled into the highlands, and we hiked up to the rim of Sierra Negra. Our guide explained that the Galapagos Islands were formed over time through underwater volcanic eruptions. Isabela itself was formed by 6 shield volcanoes, including the one that we were standing on, Sierra Negra, which is technically still active today. The last eruption was in 2018, but it's closely monitored and guided visits are permitted along designated routes. This is one of the largest calderas in the world, spanning 10 kilometers wide. Thinking back to my trip to Easter Island, the volcano that I'd scaled, Ranu Kal, seemed tiny by comparison. I couldn't even understand the scale of what I was looking at initially because the clouds were covering the far side. Then, just as we were about to leave, they cleared, and the entire caldera opened up before us. Huge shout out to our guide, Christian. He was so determined to make the trip memorable that at one point he even went rummaging through the bushes to find us guava. He told us about a local legend. Apparently, if you eat the guava in the Galapagos, you'll come back. I happily ate my piece. Wildlife doesn't fear us, and that lack of fear is exactly what makes the Galapagos special, just how close animals get to you while going about their daily lives. Unfortunately, the same quality also has made the animals extraordinarily vulnerable to us. We learned more about one of the island's most famous inhabitants, the giant tortoises, at the Charles Darwin Research Station. Giant tortoises can survive incredibly long periods without food or water, up to a full year. That's likely the key to how they got to the island in the first place. Scientists believe that giant tortoises reached the islands from South America by drifting across the ocean, on rafts of vegetation, or even floating on their own. Their ability to survive for long periods without food or fresh water would have helped them endure such an extraordinary journey. It's a fascinating evolutionary trait, but sadly, sailors turned this adaptation against them. They figured out that they could store live tortoises in ships, and they would hold them for months on end and use them as a source of fresh meat. It's estimated that over 100,000 tortoises were harvested this way, decimating their population. This guy is Lonesome George. He was the last known Pinta Island giant tortoise. He was found on Pinta in the early 1970s and moved to a breeding center where conservationists spent decades trying to reproduce him with related tortoises. Eggs were produced, but he left no offspring. When George died in 2012, the Pinta tortoise lineage was declared extinct. Humans pushed these populations toward extinction. But eventually, we recognized the damage and have since mounted extraordinary effort to save what remained. In some cases, those efforts have worked. Sadly, in George's case, it was already too late. Walking around on land, wildlife appeared in the middle of what would otherwise be everyday life. But underwater, there was no mistaking that we humans were the visitors. Good morning. So just you and me today. I am on a tour in the Galapagos, but today everyone else is doing a optional snorkeling activity. And I decided, since I'm doing diving and buoys anyway, and since we're already doing snorkeling a few times on this trip, that I would save that for later and do my own excursion today. So today I'm going to be biking to the Wall of Tears. It's not that far of a bike ride, but in total the estimated time is 4 hours because there's a lot of cool viewpoints on the way. So on the trail itself, you can see the giant tortoises along the path. If you take a look, there's a bunch of stops to rest and like swimming holes that you can stop at. So I'm wearing my bikini just in case, I find one of them and I need a little cool down. It is hot here, so it will probably be necessary. We'll see how many times I reapply sunscreen. It's gonna be a lot, But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and should be able to spot some really cool wildlife along the way. So let's go.
I got my bike. Hopefully you can see that. I wish that I was confident enough to ride while on the bike and film at the same time, but so beautiful here. Oh my god. Hot though. Holy. So this guy dragged himself over, and I guess that was it for him. Could not go any further. I see why they call it pie in the middle. It's very romantic here.
This was super cool to see. I didn't even realize what I had found until my guide told me after. This is a flightless cormorant. It's one of the rarest birds on Earth. It's only found in the Galápagos, and its population is estimated at around 2,000. So, super rare sighting, and I just happened to happen upon it.
I guess the bridge is closed. Should I do it anyway? Wow. Should I go into it? You know I'm going into it. This is a lava tunnel. There's actually fish swimming in the water down here too. This one's not blocked. Good sign. So mangrove trees help the soil here. They make it much more fertile and help with erosion control. And they are all over the place. Now, manzanas, those are these poisonous little apples that are also everywhere. So great for the earth, not great for the people. Tortoise! Sorry to disturb you. He's very much in the middle of the path, so I don't know. So there's surf. And there's a lookout point. Guess I'll do the lookout first. Fancy seeing you here. Are you a baby or are you a different kind? Okay. Fine. Keep your secrets. These guys keep coming out of nowhere. You're all on the trail. I really gotta watch my step with these. Just hiding there in the shade. I'm hot, I'm sweaty. I've kicked down at least 3 spider webs so far, but I can hear the waves and I can feel the breeze again. Funny, I thought there would be shade. That would be fine. You got the right idea, mister. I thought 7 kilometers biking, that's no big deal. Holy jeez. Muy caliente. But onward and upward, onward and upward. I made it to the top. I don't think that I've ever been more sweaty than I am now. It's so hot. Ecuador is no joke. The equator is no joke. Update. It was 20 kilometers in total. 20K, not 7.
After World War II, from 1944 to 1959, Isabela was home to an Ecuadorian penal colony, a haunting chapter for the island. Prisoners were forced to carry heavy volcanic rocks through the heat and stack them in this enormous wall, a structure with no practical purpose. It was built as a form of punishment. I was struggling while I was on a pleasure hike. I can't imagine being forced into pointless, back-breaking labor day after day like this. I think of purpose as something that's essential for mankind, and it struck me as unusually cruel to deny this to so many, forcing them to live out their days like this knowing that they were wasted. The wall belongs to a different history than the tortoises, but together they reveal something uncomfortable about human beings. Sailors turned living animals into provisions. Prison authorities forced people into brutal, purposeless labor. The victims and circumstances were completely different, but both histories demonstrate how callous man can be. But cruelty is far from the only human story in the Galápagos. Rangers, scientists, guides, and local communities are now devoting their lives to protecting these islands and trying to undo the damage that was caused long before them. Our guide talked to us about how tourism here isn't simply good or bad. He challenged the idea that less tourism would automatically mean a better outcome for the islands and their wildlife. When tourism disappeared during COVID, people lost the work that they depended on, and much of the visitor economy supporting guides, park management, and conservation activities stopped with it. At the time, around 70% of the population depended on tourism, while visitor entry fees were, and remain, a large source of funding for the management of the islands. But that does not mean that more tourism is always better. More visitors require more boats, flights, housing, food, water, and waste systems, and they create more opportunities for invasive species to arrive. So, the Galápagos holds 2 truths at once. Tourism can help people value and protect these islands, but too much of it can also damage the very thing that people come to see. It's a push and pull with no simple answer. When I come back, I'll consider seeing more of the islands from an expedition boat. The islands are spread out and a boat can reposition overnight, which does save a lot of travel time. Whatever the format, I would absolutely choose a knowledgeable local guide again. Christian's knowledge changed what I noticed, what I understood, and ultimately what I took away from the experience. I left the Galápagos feeling incredibly privileged. I had been able to see wildlife closer than I ever expected. That wasn't arranged. The animals were just living their lives all around us. The people I met were warm and generous, and I left with a much greater appreciation for the work happening now. Breeding programs, habitat restoration, biosecurity research, park management, and the daily effort of people who call these islands home. Humans came frighteningly close to destroying some of what makes the Galapagos extraordinary. Now, people are working to save it. Tourism remains part of the push and pull. It creates pressure, but it also supports livelihoods, understanding, and protection. The future of the Galapagos doesn't depend on keeping visitors out entirely. It depends on how carefully we choose to be here.